Long ago, during the Song dynasty, there lived a renowned military general whose reputation for strategic brilliance and unwavering courage preceded him wherever he went. This general, accustomed to commanding armies and conquering territories, carried himself with what the Chinese call qi shen shi, an aura of power and authority that seemed to emanate from his very being. His presence could silence a room, his gaze could inspire both fear and respect, and his voice carried the weight of absolute command. Yet, despite all his worldly achievements and the respect of the imperial court, the general found himself troubled by a restlessness that no victory could quell. Night after night, as he lay upon his silk bedding in his magnificent palace, sleep would elude him. His mind, so sharp and decisive in battle, seemed to race endlessly through strategies, concerns, and an inexplicable sense that something essential was missing from his life. One day, he heard whispers among the scholars at court about a wise Zen master known as Dai Hui, who lived in a simple temple nestled among misty mountains. It was said that this humble monk possessed a wisdom that could penetrate the deepest mysteries of existence and bring peace to even the most turbulent of hearts. Gentle sound of wind chimes dancing in the breeze. Intrigued and perhaps slightly skeptical, the general decided to seek out this teacher. He arrived at the temple in full military regalia, his armor gleaming, his sword at his side, accompanied by an impressive retinue of guards and servants. The very air around him seemed to vibrate with authority and earthly power. Master Dai Hui, a small, unassuming figure in simple brown robes, greeted the general at the temple gate with a gentle smile. The contrast between the two men could not have been more striking, one representing the pinnacle of worldly achievement and power, the other embodying the essence of spiritual simplicity and inner peace. "Master," the general began, his voice carrying its usual commanding tone, "I have come seeking the wisdom of which so many speak. I wish to understand the nature of true peace." The elderly monk nodded thoughtfully, his eyes twinkling with a kindness that seemed to see through all pretense. "Ah, honored general, I can indeed teach you about peace. But first, you must leave your qi shen shi, your aura of power and authority, outside this temple gate. True wisdom can only be received by one who approaches with an empty cup, not one who arrives already full of themselves." The general was taken aback. Never in his life had anyone suggested he should diminish his presence or set aside the very qualities that had brought him such success. "But, Master," he protested, "this authority, this power, these are not mere affectations. They are part of who I am, earned through years of discipline and achievement." Sound of flowing water over smooth stones, Master Dai Hui smiled even more gently. "Tell me, honored general, when you sleep at night, do you wear your armor? When you bathe, do you carry your sword? When you embrace your children, do you maintain your commanding voice?" The general paused, considering these questions. He realized that in the most peaceful and intimate moments of his life, he naturally set aside these outer trappings of power. "You see," the master continued, "what you call who you are is merely clothing for the spirit, just as you would not enter a peaceful temple wearing muddy boots. You cannot enter the realm of inner tranquility while clothed in the armor of ego and worldly identity." As the golden light of sunset filtered through the temple gate, the general began to understand. Slowly, mindfully, he began to remove his armor piece by piece. With each clasp unfastened, each plate of metal set aside, he felt a surprising lightness spreading through his being. The sword symbol of his power was placed respectfully beside the temple entrance. The elaborate uniform of his rank was folded carefully away. Standing now in simple white undergarments, the general felt a vulnerability he had not experienced since childhood, and with it a curious sense of freedom. The weight he had carried, not just the physical weight of armor and weapons, but the invisible burden of constantly maintaining his authoritative presence, began to lift from his shoulders. Gentle temple bell rings, once creating a moment of perfect silence. "Now," said Master Dai Hui, "you are ready to enter and learn." As they walked through the temple gate together, the general noticed something remarkable. The anxiety that had plagued him for years began to quiet. His breathing, usually controlled and measured for the sake of maintaining dignity, became naturally deep and relaxed. His mind, so accustomed to rapid calculation and strategic planning, began to settle into the present moment. This ancient story, dear friend, offers us profound wisdom as we stand at our own threshold tonight. Like the general, we each carry our own version of Qi Shen Shi, the accumulated weight of our daily roles, responsibilities, worries, and the constant effort to maintain our sense of self in a demanding world. Perhaps you arrive at this moment carrying the weight of a challenging day. Maybe your mind is still processing conversations, decisions, or concerns that seemed urgent just hours ago. Your body might hold the tension of responsibilities, shouldered deadlines met, or conflicts navigated. Sound of gentle footsteps on stone echoing softly. But here, at this sacred threshold, you have the opportunity to set these burdens down, just as the general removed his armor. Not permanently, for tomorrow you may need to pick up your responsibilities again, but for now, for this sacred time of rest and restoration. As we prepare to pass through this ancient gate together, I invite you to consciously release whatever you've been carrying. Feel the weight of the day's concerns lifting from your shoulders like a heavy cloak being gently removed. Allow your breathing to deepen naturally, just as it does when you finally sink into a comfortable chair after a long journey. Notice how, as you let go of the need to be on or alert or ready for action, a different kind of awareness begins to emerge. This is not the sharp, analytical awareness of daily problem solving, but the soft, receptive awareness of genuine presence. The same awareness that allows you to notice the beauty of a sunset or feel touched by a piece of music. The temple gate before us is not just a passage into a physical space, but an invitation into a different way of being. As we cross this threshold together, we leave behind the realm where doing is most important and enter the sacred space where simply being is enough. Sound of wooden gate gently opening with a soft creak, and so, with hearts open and spirits light, we step through the first temple gate, beginning our journey into the profound peace and timmelis wisdom that awaits us in the tranquil gardens beyond. Each step takes us deeper into serenity. Each breath brings us closer to the restful peace that is our destination tonight. Welcome to this sacred journey. Welcome to this moment of profound rest. Welcome home to the peace that has always been waiting for you just beyond the gate. Soft silence with only the gentle sound of wind through temple eaves. Part 2. Lotus Pond under moonlight. Seeing the profound in the simple, gentle ripples of water lapping against stone edges, soft cricket chirping in the distance. Having passed through the sacred temple gate, we now find ourselves walking along a winding stone pathway illuminated by the soft silver light of a full moon hanging like a luminous pearl in the velvet sky above. The path leads us through gardens where ancient pine trees cast intricate shadows, their branches reaching toward the heavens in silent meditation, having stood as witnesses to countless seasons of change, and countless seekers who have walked this very path before us. As we move deeper into the temple grounds, the sounds of the outside world fade completely away, replaced by the gentle symphony of night, the soft whisper of wind through bamboo leaves, the distant tinkle of wind chimes, and the peaceful murmur of flowing water. Each step we take seems to draw us further from the realm of everyday concerns and deeper into a space where time itself moves differently, where moments stretch like honey sweet and golden and unhurried. Sound of footsteps on smooth stone gradually becoming softer before us now, nestled in a natural hollow, surrounded by gracefully curved stone bridges and ancient willow trees, lies one of the temple's most treasured spaces, the lotus pond. Even in the gentle moonlight, we can see the dark mirror-like surface of the water, broken here and there by the distinctive circular leaves of lotus plants, floating serenely on the surface like nature's own meditation cushions. The moon above us casts its ethereal light across the pond's surface, creating a second moon that shimmers and dances with each gentle movement of the water. This reflected moon, though merely an image, appears no less beautiful than its celestial counterpart, a perfect metaphor for the Zen understanding that reality and reflection, substance and shadow are often more intimately connected than our ordinary thinking might suggest. As we settle ourselves on a comfortable stone bench positioned to overlook this peaceful scene, let me share with you a story that has been cherished by Zen practitioners for over 1,000 years, a tale that speaks to the profound wisdom that can be found in the most ordinary of observations. Soft sound of settling onto stone, followed by peaceful water sounds many centuries ago in a temple. Much like this one, there lived a young monk named Jishin, who had dedicated himself completely to understanding the deepest truths of existence. Day after day, he sat in meditation, studied ancient texts, and sought wisdom from his teachers. Yet, despite his sincere efforts and unwavering dedication, he felt that true enlightenment remained tantalizingly out of reach, like trying to grasp moonbeams in his hand. One evening, feeling particularly frustrated with his seeming lack of progress, Jishin decided to take a walk through the temple gardens to clear his mind. His steps led him as if by some invisible guidance to the very lotus pond where we now sit. The moon that night was full and brilliant, just as it is tonight, casting everything in a magical silver light that seemed to transform the ordinary world into something ethereal and sacred. As Jishin sat by the pond's edge, his attention was naturally drawn to the lotus plants floating peacefully on the water's surface. These plants, he knew, were considered sacred in Buddhist tradition, symbols of purity and enlightenment, because they grew from the mud at the bottom of the pond, yet emerged to bloom in pristine beauty above the water's surface. But as he sat there in the moonlight, something else began to capture his attention. It wasn't the lotus flowers themselves, magnificent though they were, but rather the lotus leaves, broad, simple, circular leaves that floated on the water's surface like green islands in a silver sea. Gentle sound of water lapping with occasional soft plop of a water droplet. At first, these leaves seemed unremarkable to the young monk. They were simply there, doing what lotus leaves do, floating, existing, being present on the water, without any apparent effort or striving. They weren't trying to be beautiful, like the flowers weren't reaching upward toward enlightenment, weren't engaged in any spiritual practice. They were simply, perfectly, completely themselves. As Jishin continued to observe, he began to notice something extraordinary in this very ordinariness. The leaves, he realized, were demonstrating something profound without any intention to teach. Each leaf floated exactly where it was meant to be, neither fighting the gentle currents, nor trying to move to a better location. When a breeze stirred the water, the leaves moved gracefully with the flow, neither resisting nor forcing their movement. Most remarkably, Jishin noticed how the surface of each leaf interacted with water. When dew or raindrops fell onto a lotus leaf, something magical happened. Instead of being absorbed or weighing the leaf down, the water formed perfect spherical droplets that sat on the surface like tiny crystal balls, rolling and dancing with the leaf's gentle movements, but never penetrating or disturbing its essential nature. In that moment of quiet observation, a profound understanding began to dawn in the young monk's mind. These simple lotus leaves were demonstrating without words or teachings one of the deepest truths of Zen wisdom, the art of being fully present while remaining unattached, of engaging completely with life while not being overwhelmed or diminished by its experiences. Sound of a gentle breeze stirring leaves and water. The water droplets on the leaves, Jishin realized, were like the experiences that come to us each day: emotions, thoughts, encounters, challenges, joys. Just as the lotus leaf allows the water to rest upon its surface without absorbing it, we too can learn to let our experiences touch us fully without allowing them to penetrate and disturb our essential peace. The leaf doesn't reject the water, nor does it cling to it when the water naturally rolls away. It simply maintains its own nature while allowing life to flow over and around it. This, Jishin understood in a flash of insight, was the secret he had been seeking through all his complicated study and intense meditation practice. True wisdom wasn't about acquiring something new or achieving some extraordinary state of consciousness. It was about discovering and returning to the simple, natural state of being that was already present, the state represented by these humble lotus leaves that had been teaching this lesson all along to anyone willing to simply sit still and observe. As this understanding settled into his being, like moonlight settling on water, Jishin felt a profound shift occur within him. The striving, the effort, the sense of seeking something outside himself, all of this dissolved like mist in the morning sun. What remained was a deep, unshakable peace that felt both completely new and utterly familiar, as if he were remembering something he had always known but had somehow forgotten. Soft temple. Bell chimes once in the distance. From that night forward, Jishin's approach to spiritual practice changed completely. Rather than seeking complex insights or extraordinary experiences, he learned to find the profound in the simple, the sacred in the ordinary. He discovered that enlightenment wasn't a destination to reach, but a way of seeing that was available in every moment, as close and accessible as the breath flowing naturally in and out of his body. Years later, when Jishin had become a respected teacher himself, students would often ask him about the secret of his profound peace and wisdom. He would smile gently and lead them to this very lotus pond, inviting them to sit quietly and observe the simple miracle of leaves floating on water under the moonlight. "The teaching is already here," he would say softly. "The leaves are your teachers, the water is your classroom, and the moonlight is your illumination. Everything you need to understand about the nature of enlightened being is being demonstrated right before your eyes. You need only learn to see what is already clearly visible. Sound of gentle water movement with soft night insects in the background. Tonight, dear friend, as we sit beside this same sacred pond, under the same eternal moon, we too can receive this timeless teaching. Look at how the moonlight rests so gently on the water's surface, neither grasping nor being grasped, neither forcing nor being forced. Notice how the reflection of the moon in the water is perfectly clear, yet completely insubstantial there, but not there, real but not solid. This is the nature of our own deepest being, present and aware, yet not solid or fixed. Clear and luminous, yet not something that can be grasped or possessed. Like the moon's reflection, our true nature is always present, always perfect, always available, yet it cannot be captured or controlled through effort or striving. As you breathe in the cool night air, imagine that you are breathing in this profound simplicity, this natural ease of being that the lotus leaves demonstrate so effortlessly. With each exhale, let go of any remaining complexity, any sense that peace and wisdom must be difficult or elusive. Allow yourself to settle into this moment as naturally as a lotus leaf settles onto the surface of still water. There is nothing you need to do, nothing you need to become, nothing you need to achieve. Like the leaf, you can simply be present to what is allowing experiences to touch you without disturbing your essential peace. Sound of a gentle breeze, followed by the soft plop of a water droplet falling from a leaf. Feel how your breath moves naturally without any effort on your part, like gentle ripples across the pond's surface. Notice the spaces between your breaths, those moments of natural stillness that occur without any doing, just as the pond has moments of perfect stillness between its gentle movements. In these spaces between breaths, between thoughts, between moments of awareness, you can discover the same profound simplicity that Jishin found in observing the lotus leaves. This is your natural state of being, not the complicated, effortful consciousness of daily problem solving, but the simple natural awareness that is always present, always peaceful, always home. As the moon continues its silent journey across the night sky, as the lotus leaves continue their gentle floating dance, as the water continues its soft murmuring song, allow yourself to join this eternal symphony of simply being. Let the wisdom of the pond wash over you like moonlight, cleansing away any remaining sense that peace is something you must struggle to find. Extended gentle water sounds with soft night ambience. Rest now in this understanding. Rest in the simplicity that is always available. Rest in the profound, ordinary miracle of this moment where nothing needs to be different for everything to be perfect just as it is. Part 3. The Silent Meditation Hall. Entering the realm of no mind. Sound of soft footsteps on polished wooden floors, followed by profound silence. From the moonlit serenity of the lotus pond, our journey now leads us along a covered walkway where ancient wooden beams overhead create patterns of shadow and silver light. The path winds gently upward past stone lanterns that glow with the soft warmth of candlelight, their gentle illumination guiding us toward the heart of the temple complex, the great meditation hall or zendo, where generations of seekers have discovered the profound peace that lies beyond thought and beyond words. As we approach this sacred space, notice how the very air seems to change, becoming somehow thicker, with presence more substantial, with the accumulated stillness of countless hours of silent sitting. The wooden structure before us, built of darkened cedar and pine, appears to have grown from the earth itself, its graceful roofline curving skyward like hands joined in prayer, its wide eaves extending protectively over the space where inner transformation unfolds. Gentle sound of sliding wooden doors opening. We pause at the threshold, following the ancient custom of bowing before entering this most sacred of spaces. As we step across the raised wooden entrance, feel how the polished floors, worn smooth by thousands of feet over hundreds of years, seem to welcome us into their embrace. The hall stretches before us in serene spaciousness, rows of black meditation cushions arranged with perfect precision, each one a small island of possibility in the vast ocean of silence. At the far end of the hall, a simple wooden altar holds a bronze Buddha statue, its face reflecting the gentle light of oil lamps with an expression of infinite compassion and unshakable peace. The statue seems to embody the very essence of what we seek. That state of complete stillness that exists not as an absence of life, but as the deepest presence imaginable, where being itself becomes pure awareness without the need for any object to be aware of. Sound of settling onto meditation cushions, fabric rustling softly, as we take our places on the firm yet comfortable cushions arranged in the traditional manner facing inward toward the center of the hall. Let me share with you a teaching that illuminates the profound purpose of this sacred space, a wisdom that speaks to the very heart of what it means to discover the religion of no religion, the practice of no practice, the teaching that transcends all teachings. Many centuries ago, there lived a Zen master named Yongke, whose understanding of the deepest truths had earned him recognition throughout the land. Unlike many teachers of his time who relied heavily on complex scriptural study or elaborate ritual practices, Master Yongke had discovered something far more direct and immediate, what he called one-session Zen, a way of awakening that could occur in a single moment of complete stillness, when the mind finally stops its endless commentary and discovers its own natural state of luminous emptiness. Students came from far and wide to study with this remarkable teacher, drawn by stories of his unconventional approach and the profound transformations that seemed to occur simply through sitting in his presence. Yet, those who arrived expecting elaborate teachings or sophisticated meditation techniques were often surprised by the radical simplicity of what they encountered. Subtle sound of breath naturally settling into rhythm. One autumn evening, much like this one, a young scholar named Dayun arrived at Master Yongke's temple, carrying with him years of Buddhist study and a mind filled with complex philosophical understanding. He had memorized countless sutras, mastered intricate meditation techniques, and could discourse eloquently on the subtlest points of doctrine. Yet, despite all his knowledge, he felt no closer to the peace and liberation that these teachings promised. When Daun was finally granted an audience with the master, he found himself in a meditation hall very similar to this one, a space of profound simplicity where the very walls seemed to breathe with accumulated silence. Master Yongke sat motionless on his cushion, his presence so completely still that he seemed more like a natural feature of the landscape than a human being engaged in any kind of practice. "Master," Daeun began his voice unconsciously, dropping to a whisper in the presence of such profound quiet. I have studied extensively and practiced diligently, yet enlightenment continues to elude me. What special method can you teach me? What advanced technique will finally bring me to awakening? For a long moment, Master Yongke said nothing. His eyes remained gently closed, his breathing so subtle as to be almost imperceptible. When he finally spoke, his voice emerged from the silence like a natural sound wind through bamboo or water over stones. The religion of no religion, he said softly, requires no method. The practice of no practice needs no technique. What you seek is not something to be added to your experience, but something to be discovered as the very nature of experience itself. Sound of deep, natural breathing. Daeun frowned, his scholarly mind immediately beginning to analyze and categorize these words. But, Master, surely there must be some instruction, some guidance. How can one practice without a method? Master Yongke opened his eyes then, and Daeun was struck by their quality, not the look of someone concentrating or striving, but rather the natural awareness of someone completely present to what is like clear water reflecting the sky without effort or intention. Tell me, the Master said, when you sleep deeply at night, what method do you use to be aware? What technique maintains your essential being while your thoughts are absent? The question stopped Daeun completely. He had never considered that awareness might exist independently of thinking that being might continue, even when the mind's usual activities had ceased. I don't know, he admitted. When I sleep deeply, I seem to disappear entirely. And yet, Master Yongke observed, you wake up as yourself, not as someone else. Something continuous remains, does it not? Something that requires no maintenance, no method, no practice to keep it present. As these words settled into the profound silence of the meditation hall, Daeun began to sense something he had never noticed before, a quality of awareness that seemed to exist prior to and independent of his thoughts about awareness, a presence that was simply there, without any effort to maintain it. Gentle sound of settling deeper into stillness. This hall, Master Yongke continued, his voice seeming to emerge from the silence itself, is not a place where we create something new, but where we discover what has always been present. The cushions, the stillness, the forms and traditions, none of these produce enlightenment. They simply provide a space where the mind can finally stop its endless activity and recognize its own natural state. He gestured to the space around them with a movement so fluid it seemed like part of the silence itself. Look around you. Do you see these walls striving to be walls? Do you observe these floors making effort to support us? Does the Buddha statue on the altar practice being peaceful? Daeun looked around the hall with new eyes, beginning to understand something that his years of study had somehow missed. Everything in this space simply was what it was, completely and effortlessly. The walls held their perfect stillness without any technique. The floors supported everything above them without any method. The Buddha statue radiated peace without any practice. This is the teaching of no teaching, Master Yongke explained. To discover that your deepest nature is like this hall itself, naturally spacious, inherently peaceful, requiring nothing additional to be complete. Sound of profound silence with only the subtle ambient presence of the hall. As this understanding began to dawn in Dayan's awareness, he felt something extraordinary occur. The part of his mind that was constantly seeking, constantly trying to understand and achieve and become simply stopped. Not through force or suppression, but through the natural recognition that there was nothing it needed to do. In that moment of complete stillness, Dayun discovered what Master Yongke meant by one session Zen. It wasn't that enlightenment occurred in a single sitting, but that the awakened state was always already present, requiring only the stopping of the search for it to be recognized. The scholar who had entered the hall burdened with questions and techniques and the effort to achieve something found himself simply sitting in natural awareness as effortless and uncontrived as space itself. The complicated seeking mind had dissolved into the simplicity of just being present with no agenda other than to rest in the inherent completeness of this moment. Years later, when Dayun had become a teacher himself, students would often ask him about the secret of meditation practice. He would smile and lead them to a meditation hall just like this one, inviting them to sit in the profound silence and discover for themselves what was already perfectly present. The method, he would say gently, is to have no method. The practice is to cease practicing anything other than simple presence. The technique is to recognize that your natural state requires no technique to maintain it. Extended period of natural breathing sounds and profound stillness. Tonight, dear friend, as we sit together in this sacred hall where countless seekers have made this same discovery, we too can experience the profound simplicity that Master Yongke taught. Notice how sitting here requires no effort beyond the simple willingness to be present. Your breath flows naturally without any technique. Your awareness is effortlessly aware without any method to maintain it. Feel how this cushion supports you completely, just as the earth supports the temple, just as space holds all things without strain or effort. Allow your body to settle into this natural support, like water finding its level, like a stone coming to rest in still water. Notice the quality of silence that pervades this hall, not an empty as islands, but a fullness so complete that it contains all possibilities. This is the silence of your own deepest nature, the spaciousness of awareness itself, which is always present but often overlooked in the busyness of daily mental activity. Let your breathing become as natural and effortless as the breathing of the hall itself, the gentle expansion and contraction that occurs without your management, like the subtle movements of life that flow through all things without requiring conscious direction. In the spaces between your breaths, in the gaps between thoughts, discover the same natural stillness that Master Yongke pointed to, not a state you create through effort, but the inherent peace that is revealed when the mind's habitual activities naturally subside. Sound of the hall's natural ambience, wooden beams settling distant night sounds. This meditation hall, with its centuries of accumulated silence, serves as a reminder of what is always available in any moment, in any placee. The peace we discover here is not dependent on being in a special location or having particular conditions. It is the recognition of awareness itself, which travels with us wherever we go, which is as present in the midst of daily activity as it is in the deepest meditation. As we continue to rest in this profound simplicity, allow any remaining sense of needing to achieve something or get somewhere to dissolve into the natural contentment of simply being. Like the Buddha statue at the front of the hall, radiate peace not as something you do, but as what you essentially are. Rest now in the religion of no religion, the practice of no practice, the method of no method. Rest in the complete natural perfection of this moment where nothing needs to be added and nothing needs to be taken away, for everything to be exactly as it should be. In this silence, find the most profound teaching. In this stillness, discover the most powerful practice. In this simple presence, recognize the co-empletion you have always been seeking, which was never actually absent, only temporarily overlooked in the search for it. Deep, profound silence with only the subtle presence of the ancient hall. Part 4. The Whispered Bamboo Garden. Listening to nature's sacred voice. Gentle rustling of bamboo leaves in the evening breeze, creating a soft, rhythmic whisper from the profound silence of the meditation hall. Our journey now leads us through a moonlit doorway that opens onto one of the temple's most enchanting spaces, the bamboo garden, where thousands of graceful bamboo stalks create a living cathedral of green and gold, their slender forms swaying gently in the cool night breeze like countless prayer flags offered to the heavens. As we step onto the narrow gravel path that winds through this natural sanctuary, notice how the sound of our footsteps is immediately absorbed by the dense growth around us, replaced by something far more subtle and profound, the collective voice of the bamboo forest itself, speaking in whispers and sighs, in gentle creaks and soft rustlings that seem to carry the wisdom of ages on every breath of wind. The moonlight filters down through the canopy above us in delicate silver streams, creating ever-shifting patterns of light and shadow on the path ahead. Each bamboo stalk rises like a meditation posture, made manifest perfectly straight, yet infinitely flexible, rooted deeply in the earth, yet reaching always toward the sky, embodying that essential quality of Zen practice, where strength and softness, stability and adaptability exist in perfect harmony. Sound of footsteps on gravel, slowly fading into the ambient whispers of bamboo. As we pause here in the heart of this living temple, where the very air seems to vibrate with the subtle music of growing things, let me share with you a story that has been treasured in Zen tradition for over 8 centuries. A tale that speaks to the profound teaching capacity of the natural world and the extraordinary awakening that can occur when we truly learn to listen with our whole being. During the Tang dynasty, in a remote mountain temple surrounded by vast bamboo groves, there lived a monk named Xiangyan Jixian, whose dedication to understanding the deepest truths of existence was matched only by his growing frustration at what seemed to be his lack of progress on the spiritual path. For 20 years he had studied under various masters, memorized countless sutras, mastered complex meditation techniques, and engaged in the most rigorous forms of practice. Yet, the profound awakening he sought continued to elude him like mist, dissolving at sunrise. Xiangyan was known among his fellow monks for his brilliant intellect and encyclopedic knowledge of Buddhist doctrine. He could debate the finest points of philosophy with scholarly precision, explain the most subtle aspects of meditation theory with eloquent clarity, and recite from memory vast collections of ancient wisdom teachings. Yet, despite all this accumulated learning, he felt no closer to the direct experiential understanding that he witnessed in his teachers, that quality of natural wisdom that seemed to flow from them as effortlessly as water flows from a spring. Soft wind through bamboo intensifies slightly, creating a more complex symphony of natural sounds. His master, Guishan Lingyu, recognized Xiangyan's predicament, the particular suffering that comes from being trapped in intellectual understanding while remaining distant from the immediate intuitive wisdom that transcends all concepts and categories. One day, after yet another session, where Xiangyan had demonstrated his vast learning while remaining visibly troubled by his lack of direct insight, Master Juishan decided to employ a teaching method that would challenge the very foundation of his students' approach to spiritual practice. "Xiangyan," the master said in the gentle but penetrating voice that marked all his most important teachings, "I want you to tell me something about your original nature, not what you have read in books, not what other teachers have said, not what you have memorized or studied, but what you directly know of your own true essence from before you were born, before you learned language, before you acquired all this magnificent learning that has become both your treasure and your burden." The question stopped Xiangyan completely. For perhaps the first time in decades, his brilliant mind found itself without a ready answer. He searched through his vast mental library of concepts and explanations, but every formulation he attempted felt hollow and borrowed, lacking the authenticity and immediacy that the master's question demanded. For days, then weeks, Xiangyan struggled with this challenge, gradually coming to understand that everything he thought he knew about enlightenment was actually preventing him from recognizing the enlightened awareness that was already naturally present. His accumulated knowledge, rather than bringing him closer to truth, had created a kind of conceptual barrier between himself and the direct recognition of his own essential nature. Bamboo, creaking gently as the breeze shifts direction, finally, in a moment of profound humility and frustration, Xiangyan made a radical decision. He gathered all his books, all his carefully written notes and commentaries, all the physical representations of his years of scholarly study, and burned them in the temple courtyard. "I will never again attempt to understand the Buddha's teaching through study," he declared. "If I cannot discover truth directly, then I will simply serve others and abandon this search that has brought me nothing but confusion." With this resolution, Xiangyan left the monastery and became a simple hermit tending the grave of a long-deceased Zen master in a remote mountain location surrounded by dense bamboo forests. For months, he lived in complete simplicity, sweeping pathways, maintaining the modest shrine, preparing simple meals, and performing the humble tasks of caretaking without any agenda for spiritual achievement or personal enlightenment. Gradually, something began to shift in Xiangyan's way of being. Without the constant pressure of trying to understand something intellectually, without the burden of maintaining his identity as a learned monk, his mind began to settle into a natural state of openness and receptivity. The mental commentaries that had been his constant companions for decades began to quiet, leaving space for a different kind of awareness to emerge, not the sharp, analytical consciousness of scholarly study, but the soft, receptive presence that can listen to the world without immediately categorizing or explaining what it hears. Sound of bamboo grows more pronounced as if the wind is picking up. One morning in early spring, as Xiangyan was sweeping the pathways around the hermitage, his broom struck a small stone, sending it flying through the air to strike sharply against a bamboo stalk. The clear, resonant sound that emerged, a single pure note that seemed to hang in the air like a crystal bell, cut through his consciousness with stunning immediacy. In that instant, something extraordinary occurred. The sound of stone striking bamboo became a direct transmission of the very truth he had been seeking for 2 decades. Not a symbol of truth, not a metaphor for enlightenment, not a sign pointing towards some distant realization, but truth itself, immediate and undeniable, present in the simple, natural occurrence of sound arising in space. All at once, Xiangyan understood what his master had been pointing toward with that impossible question about his original nature. The awareness that was hearing the sound of stone on bamboo was itself the Buddha nature he had been seeking. The consciousness that could receive and recognize this simple natural event was the enlightened mind he had imagined was something he needed to achieve or acquire. A sharp crack of bamboo followed by a moment of profound silence. The sound had come and gone in an instant. Leaving no trace yet in its wake was the unshakable recognition that this very capacity to be aware, not aware of something in particular, but simply aware, was the treasure he had been seeking. It had been present all along in every moment of his studies, in every session of meditation, in every frustrated attempt to grasp truth intellectually. It was the very awareness by means of which he had been seeking awareness, like trying to use a flashlight to find the flashlight. In that moment of crystal clarity, all his years of complex study and sophisticated practice revealed their true purpose not to create or achieve enlightenment, but to exhaust the seeking mind until it naturally relaxed into recognition of what had always been present. The sound of bamboo had been his final teacher, offering what no book could convey, and no technique could produce the direct, immediate recognition of his own essential nature. Overwhelmed with gratitude and joy, Xiangyan composed a poem that has been treasured in Zen tradition ever since. One strike, all previous knowledge forgotten. No more need for disciplined practice. This very moment reveals the ancient way. No traces of enlightenment remain. In daily activities, no rules apply everywhere. The expression of true awakening. Spiritual teachers of all places recognize this as the highest understanding. Bamboo symphony reaches a crescendo, then gently subsides. From that day forward, Xiangyan's teaching became renowned for its extraordinary naturalness and immediacy. Students who came to him expecting complex instructions or elaborate meditation techniques found instead a master who could point directly to the enlightened awareness that was already present in their simple capacity to hear his words, to see his gestures, to be present in the moment of encounter. He would often lead students to the very bamboo grove where his awakening had occurred, inviting them to sit quietly and listen, not for any particular sound or insight, but simply to practice the art of pure receptivity, allowing whatever sounds arose to be exactly as they were, without the need to interpret or categorize or make spiritual meaning from them. The bamboo, he would tell them, has been teaching the Dharma continuously since beginningless time. The wind has been giving meditation instructions since before the first Buddha was born. Every sound in nature is a direct transmission of enlightened awareness, if only we know how to listen without the interference of our conceptual minds. Wind shifts, creating new patterns of sound through the bamboo forest. Tonight, dear friend, as we sit here in this whispering cathedral of bamboo, we too can receive the teaching that transformed Xiangyan's understanding so completely. Listen now to the symphony surrounding us, not trying to find meaning in it, not attempting to have any particular experience, but simply allowing your awareness to rest in the natural capacity to receive whatever sounds arise. Notice how each whisper of bamboo leaves each gentle creak of swaying stalks. Each subtle shift in the wind's direction creates its own momentary music that comes and goes without leaving any trace. This is exactly how thoughts and emotions and experiences move through the sky of awareness, arising naturally, existing for their brief moment, then dissolving back into the spaciousness from which they emerged. Feel how your ears don't need to effort to hear these sounds. The capacity to receive them is simply present, naturally available, requiring no technique or training to function perfectly. This effortless receptivity of hearing is a perfect metaphor for the enlightened awareness that Xiangyan discovered, not something created through practice, but something recognized as already fully present and naturally functioning. Subtle variations in bamboo soundees with occasional bird calls in the distance. Allow your entire being to become like a perfectly tuned instrument, resonating naturally with whatever sounds arise in this moment. Just as a bell doesn't need to decide how to ring when struck, your awareness doesn't need to decide how to be present to whatever experiences come and go in the field of consciousness. Notice how the bamboo around us demonstrates perfect responsiveness without resistance. When the wind blows strongly, they bend gracefully rather than fighting the force. When the air is still, they rest in natural uprightness without effort. They embody the wisdom of wu-wei action that is perfectly appropriate to each moment without being forced or contrived. In the spaces between sounds, discover the same pregnant silence that exists between your thoughts, not an empty void, but a fullness so complete that it can give birth to any possibility. This silence is not the absence of sound, but the space in which all sounds can arise and be heard. Just as awareness is not the absence of experience, but the space in which all experiences can be known. Let the whispers of bamboos wash through your consciousness like gentle rain, carrying away any remaining effort to achieve something special or have a particular type of spiritual experience. Like Xiangyan, allow yourself to simply be present to what is naturally occurring without the burden of trying to make it into something meaningful or transformative. Bamboo sounds gradually become more rhythmic and soothing. Feel how this simple act of listening, really listening with your whole being rather than just your ears, naturally brings you into the present moment more completely than any meditation technique. The sounds are only available now in this instant, and to receive them fully requires the total presence that is your natural state when not distracted by mental commentary about past and future. As the bamboo continues its ancient teaching spoken in the Yu, universal language of natural sound, allow yourself to rest in the same openness that received Xiangyan's moment of awakening. You don't need a stone to strike bamboo. You don't need a dramatic moment of realization. The enlightened awareness that can hear these sounds is the same Buddha nature that Xiangyan recognized, and it is present and available in the simple capacity to be aware that is functioning right now as you receive these words. Extended period of rich bamboo forest ambience with gentle wind and subtle creaking. In this natural cathedral of living sound, discover that every moment offers the same potential for direct recognition that transformed Xiangyan's understanding. Not because something special needs to happen, but because the extraordinary is always already present in the ordinary capacity to be awake to what is arising now. Rest here in the whispers and sighs of the bamboo garden, letting their ancient teaching penetrate into the deepest layers of your being, where words cannot reach, but truth can be directly known, where the simplest sounds can convey the most profound understanding, where the Buddha's original voice speaks through every movement of wind and bamboo, every breath you breathe, every beat of your heart, joining the eternal rhythm of awakening that has no beginning and no end. Peaceful resolution into gentle rhythmic bamboo whispers. Part 5. The ancient bell tower, embracing the eternal dance of impermanence. Deep resonant bell tone echoing across the temple grounds, followed by profound silence. From the whispering wisdom of the bamboo garden, our moonlit journey now leads us up a gentle stone stairway carved into the hillside, where ancient granite steps, worn smooth by countless pilgrims over the centuries, guide us toward one of the temple's most sacred and evocative structures, the bell tower standing like a timeless sentinel against the star-scattered sky, its graceful pagoda silhouette a perfect marriage of earth and He-Avan, solidity and space. As we climb these weathered steps, notice how each one tells its own story of impermanence, edges softened by time, and where the surface is polished by the passage of countless feet, the stone itself slowly returning to the mountain from which it came, yet still serving its purpose with quiet dignity. The very stones beneath our feet offer a teaching about the nature of existence. Nothing remains unchanged, yet change itself contains a kind of eternal continuity. The bell tower rises before us, now a 3-story wooden structure built in the classical style, its darkened timbers having weathered hundreds of seasons of rain and sunshine, wind and snow each year, adding new character to the wood's natural grain, while somehow making the entire structure more beautiful rather than diminished by time's passage. Sound of wooden stairs creaking gently under footsteps. As we ascend the narrow wooden staircase that spirals up through the tower's interior, we can feel the building's gentle sway in the night breeze. Not a sign of weakness, but evidence of the ancient architectural wisdom that builds flexibility into strength, allowing the tower to dance with the wind rather than resist it, to bend without breaking, to endure precisely because it does not try to remain rigidly unchanged. At the top of the tower, we emerge onto a circular viewing platform where the great bronze bell hangs suspended from massive wooden beams, its surface green with the patina of centuries covered with intricate Sanskrit and Chinese characters that spiral around its circumference like prayers made visible. The bell itself seems to embody the profound teachings we've been receiving, ancient yet timeless, solid yet somehow translucent in the moonlight, silent now but carrying within its bronze body the memory of countless calls to awakening. Gentle night wind through the tower's wooden beams as we settle ourselves on the simple wooden benches arranged around the bell takinang in the panoramic view of the temple grounds, spread below us like a miniature landscape of enlightenment. Let me share with you a teaching story that has resonated through Zen tradition for over a millennium, a tale that speaks to the heart of what it means to embrace rather than resist the fundamental impermanence that characterizes all existence. In ancient China during the Song dynasty, there lived a Zen master named Yunmen Wenyan, whose reputation for profound wisdom was matched only by his ability to help students understand the most difficult aspects of Buddhist teaching through simple, direct encounters that cut through conceptual complexity like a sharp sword cutting through silk. Master Yunmen had a particular gift for helping people understand what Buddhists call anicca, the fundamental impermanence that underlies all phenomenal existence. One autumn evening, as the first frost was beginning to touch the temple gardens and the leaves were starting their annual transformation from green to gold to brown, a wealthy merchant named Chen arrived at Master Yunmen's monastery in a state of profound distress. Chen had built a successful trading business, accumulated significant wealth, raised a large family, and enjoyed the respect of his community for decades. Yet recently, a series of events had shattered his sense of security and permanence. Distant sound of leaves rustling in the wind. His eldest son had died unexpectedly from illness. His business had suffered major losses due to political upheaval. His health was declining, and he found himself confronting for the first time the reality that everything he had worked to build and protect was subject to forces beyond his control. The comfortable illusion that he could create lasting security through effort and planning had been stripped away, leaving him feeling lost and frightened in a world that suddenly seemed utterly unreliable. "Master," Chen said, when he was finally granted an audience, his voice trembling with the emotional weight he carried, "I have always been a man of action, believing that through hard work and careful planning, I could create a stable, lasting foundation for my family's happiness and security. But now I see that everything I've built can be taken away in an instant. How can one live with any peace when nothing, absolutely nothing, can be counted on to remain unchanged?" Master Yunmen listened with the complete presence that marked all great teachers, his eyes reflecting the deep compassion that comes from having fully accepted the very truth that was causing Chen such suffering. When the merchant finished speaking, the master rose silently and led him up to the temple's bell tower, much like the one where we now sit. The great bronze bell hung in the moonlight, much as it does tonight, its ancient surface reflecting the gentle illumination with a subtle warmth that seemed to emanate from within the metal itself. Master Yunmen stood beside the bell for a long moment, then picked up the wooden striker and rang it once, a deep, sonorous tone that rolled out across the valley below, echoing off distant mountains before gradually fading into silence. Sound of a bell tone similar to the one in the story, resonating and slowly fading. "Tell me," the master said as the last traces of sound dissolved into the night air, "where did that sound go?" Chen frowned, unsure how to answer what seemed like a simple question. It faded away. It's gone now." "Gone where?" Master Yunmen asked gently. "Can you show me the place where sounds go when they fade?" The merchant looked around helplessly, beginning to sense that something profound was being pointed out that he wasn't quite grasping. "I don't know where it went. It just stopped existing." Master Yunmen smiled with infinite kindness. "Did it, though? Listen carefully now." He struck the bell again, producing another rich, full tone that filled the night air with its vibratory presence. As they both listened to this second ringing, Chen began to notice something he had missed before. The sound didn't simply appear and then disappear. It arose gradually from silence, reached its full expression, and then returned gradually to silence. But more than that, the silence before the sound and the silence after the sound were the same silence, unchanged by the sound's temporary presence. Another bell tone with careful attention to its arising and passing. The sound. Master Yunmen explained, arises from silence and returns to silence, but the silence itself is never disturbed or diminished by the sound's presence or absence. In the same way, all the experiences of your life, the joys and sorrows, the gains and losses, the births and deaths, arise from and return to the fundamental ground of being. That is your true nature. He gestured toward the bell with a movement that somehow conveyed both the reverence due to an ancient teaching instrument and the casual familiarity of So-Maone, who had learned to see the sacred in the ordinary. This bell has been ringing for over 300 years. Countless sounds have arisen from it and faded away. Wars have been fought and peace has returned. Dynasties have risen and fallen. Thousands of people have been born and have died. Yet the bell's essential capacity to ring remains unchanged, just as your essential capacity to be aware remains unchanged, regardless of what experiences arise and pass away in the field of your consciousness. Chen felt something beginning to shift in his understanding, though he couldn't yet put it into words. But Master, my son, is truly gone. My business has truly failed. These aren't just temporary experiences, they're permanent losses. Gentle wind through the tower, causing subtle creaking sounds, Master Yunmen nodded with deep understanding. Yes, in the realm of form, these changes are real and irreversible. The wave that has crashed on the shore cannot uncrash. The flower that has bloomed and wilted cannot unwilt. But tell me, when a wave crashes, is the ocean diminished? When a flower wilts, is the earth's capacity to bring forth new flowers destroyed? He rang the bell once more, and this time Chen listened with a different quality of attention. Instead of focusing on the sound itself, he began to notice the awareness that was listening to the sound, the consciousness that was present before the sound arose, during its full expression, and after it faded away. Your son's physical form has returned to the elements, the master continued gently, but the love you shared, the impact he had on your life, the ways he changed and enriched your understanding, these continue to live in you and through you. They have become part of who you are, and in that sense, they are as permanent as anything can be in this world of constant change. As this understanding began to penetrate Chen's grief-stricken heart, he felt something extraordinary happening. The desperate resistance he had been maintaining against the reality of loss began to soften, not into resignation or despair, but into a different relationship with impermanence itself. Bell rings once more with a quality of acceptance and peace. The secret Master Yunmen shared is not to try to make the impermanent permanent, which is impossible and leads only to suffering, but to discover what is truly lasting within the midst of constant change. Just as this bell can ring countless different sounds while its essential nature remains unchanged, your consciousness can experience countless different forms and phenomena while its essential awareness remains untouched. Over the following months, Chen continued to visit Master Yunmen, and gradually he learned to hear the bell's teaching, not just intellectually, but with his whole being. He discovered that grief and acceptance could coexist, that love for someone could continue even after their physical presence was gone, that the profound connection formed between beings transcend the temporary forms through which they are expressed. The merchant eventually returned to his business and rebuilt much of what he had lost, but his relationship to success and failure had been fundamentally transformed. He no longer sought to create permanent security through external means, but instead found a deeper kind of stability in his growing ability to remain present and responsive to whatever circumstances arose. Gentle bell resonance fading into peaceful silence. Years later, when Chen had become an elder in his community, people would often seek his counsel during their own times of loss and difficulty. He would listen with the same quality of presence he had learned from Master Yunmen, and when words seemed insufficient, he would sometimes lead them to listen to the temple bell. Everything that arises must pass away, he would tell them gently, but the awareness that witnesses arising and passing is itself neither born nor dying. Rest in that witness consciousness, and you will find a peace that doesn't depend on any particular circumstance remaining unchanged. Tonight, dear friend, as we sit here in this ancient bell tower where countless seekers have confronted the teaching of impermanence, we too can receive the profound wisdom that transformed Chen's relationship to loss and change. Listen now as I ring this ancient bell and notice not just the sound it makes, but the awareness in which the sound appears and disappears. Deep, resonant bell tone fills the night air. Feel how your consciousness is like the space in which this sound arises, vast enough to contain the sound, yet not limited or defined by it. The sound appears in your awareness, exists for its moment and fades away, but your capacity to be aware remains constant throughout the entire process. This awareness that you are not the thoughts and emotions and experiences that come and go within awareness, but the awareness itself. This is what the Buddha pointed to as your unborn, unchanging nature. It is present in childhood and remains present in old age. It is available in times of joy and equally available in times of sorrow. It witnesses the arising and passing of countless mental and physical phenomena while itself remaining as constant as space. Another bell tone, allowing time for deep listening. As the sound of the bell fades into silence, notice that you don't mourn its passing in the way you might mourn other kinds of loss. You naturally allow it to arise, exist for its moment, and fade away without resistance. This natural acceptance of the bell's impermanence can become a model for how to relate to all the temporary phenomena of life. Think now of something you have lost, perhaps a person you loved, a phase of life that has ended, a dream that didn't manifest as you hoped. Notice the difference between the pain of the loss itself, which is natural and appropriate, and the additional suffering that comes from resisting the reality of impermanence, from wishing things could be otherwise than they are. Gentle wind creating subtle sounds through the tower structure. Allow the bell's teaching to penetrate into the places in your heart where you may still be fighting against the fundamental changeability of existence. Not to become indifferent or detached, but to find a way of loving and caring that doesn't depend on being able to prevent loss, a way of engaging fully with life while holding lightly to its forms. Feel how the tower itself demonstrates this teaching, solid and stable enough to serve its purpose, yet flexible enough to sway with the wind, to change gradually over time while maintaining its essential function. This is the middle way between rigid attachment and careless indifference, full engagement without desperate clinging. As another sound of the bell fills the night air, let it represent everything you fear, losing everything you're trying to hold on to, everything you wish could remain unchanged forever. Notice how beautiful the sound is precisely because it is temporary, how its poignancy comes from its brief existence rather than despite it. extended bell resonance gradually fading to silence. In the growing silence that follows, discover the same deathless awareness that Chen found in Master Yunmin's teaching. The consciousness that remains present and undisturbed, whether sounds are arising or fading, whether experiences are pleasant or difficult, whether life is bringing gain or loss. This awareness is what you truly are beneath all the temporary identities and circumstances that are subject to change. It is the unchanging ground in which all change occurs, the eternal stillness in which all movement takes place, the deathless presence in which birth and death are simply different expressions of the same fundamental life energy. Rest here now in this understanding, letting the ancient bell tower hold you in its embrace of time and timelessness, change and continuity. Feel yourself becoming like the bell itself, capable of resonating with whatever life brings, yet always returning to your essential silence, always available for the next moment's call to awakening. Final bell tone, followed by extended, peaceful silence with night sounds. In this high place between earth and heaven, between time and eternity, let the teaching of impermanence become not a source of fear, but a gateway to the deepest freedom, the freedom that comes from aligning yourself with the way things actually are, rather than demanding they be otherwise, the peace that arises when you stop fighting the river of change and learn to navigate its currents with wisdom and grace. Part 6. The Temple. Kitchen. Finding the sacred in simple actions, gentle sound of footsteps on stone paths, with the distant aroma of incense mingling with subtle cooking scents. From the contemplative heights of the bell tower, our journey now descends through moonlit pathways back toward the heart of the temple complex, where the practical necessities of daily life are transformed into opportunities for deeper awakening. We make our way along a covered walkway whose wooden pillars cast intricate shadows in the silvery light, past sleeping gardens where night-blooming jasmine releases its subtle fragrance into the cool air. Our destination lies in what might seem the most ordinary part of the temple grounds, the kitchen where for centuries monks have prepared simple meals, brewed tea for guests and maintained the basic sustenance that allows contemplative life to flourish. Yet in the Zen tradition, there is perhaps no more sacred space than this humble room where the most fundamental activities of daily existence are performed with the same reverence and mindfulness that others might reserve for the most formal meditation practices. As we approach the kitchen entrance, notice how even this utilitarian building carries the same architectural grace as the more obviously sacred structures we visited. The wooden framework, darkened by age and seasoned by countless cooking fires, speaks of generations of careful maintenance and respectful use. The wide eaves shelter rows of ceramic jars and wooden storage containers, each one positioned with the precise attention that characterizes every aspect of temple life. Soft sound of sliding paper doors opening. We step across the raised threshold into a space that embodies the Zen principle, that enlightenment is not separate from the activities of ordinary life, but is found precisely in the complete mindful engagement with whatever task is at hand. The kitchen stretches before us in serene simplicity. Low wooden counters worn smooth by decades of use, copper pots and iron cooking vessels arranged with careful precision, and everywhere the subtle evidence of work performed not as drudgery to be endured, but as practice to be cherished. Even at this late hour, the kitchen retains the warmth of the day's activities. A single oil lamp casts dancing shadows on the walls, and in one corner, a small brazier glows with barely visible embers, maintaining just enough heat to keep a kettle of water warm for the late evening tea that concludes each day's cycle of practice. Gentle sounds of settling into the kitchen space with subtle ambient warmth as we settle ourselves on simple wooden stools beside the preparation counter, surrounded by the humble tools of nourishment and care. Let me share with you a story that illuminates why this unpretentious space has been considered sacred by Zen practitioners for over 1,000 years, a teaching that reveals how the path to awakening is walked not only in meditation halls and scripture study, but in the simple repeated acts of caring for our basic human needs. During the Kamakura period in Japan, there lived a Zen master named Dogen Zenji, whose profound understanding of Buddhist teaching would eventually revolutionize the way practitioners approached the relationship between formal meditation and daily life activities. Master Dogen had studied in the great monasteries of China, where he encountered teachings that challenged the common assumption that spiritual practice was something separate from ordinary activities, performed only during designated times in special spaces. One morning, while staying at Tiantong Monastery on Mount Taibai, young Dogen encountered an elderly monk in the temple kitchen who would forever change his understanding of what constituted true spiritual practice. The old monk, who served as the monastery's tenzo, the kitchen master responsible for preparing meals for the entire community, was painstakingly sorting through dried mushrooms in the morning sun, examining each one individually before placing it in the appropriate pile. Soft sounds of gentle handling of kitchen implements, Dogen was struck by the complete absorption with which this elderly practitioner approached what seemed like the most mundane of tasks. Each mushroom received the old monk's full attention, as if the careful sorting of vegetables was as important as the most profound meditation or the most scholarly scriptural study. There was no sense of hurrying to get through the work, so that real practice could begin. This was clearly unmistakably real practice. Venerable Elder, Dogen asked with the respectful curiosity that marked all his encounters with wisdom, surely this work of sorting vegetables could be delegated to younger monks or lay assistants. Wouldn't your time be better spent in meditation or study of the sutras? The old tenzo paused in his work and looked at Dogen with eyes that sparkled with both kindness and a hint of amusement. Young monk, he said gently, you clearly haven't yet understood what study is, and you don't know what practice means. Dogen was taken aback by this response. He had spent years in intensive study and meditation, had mastered complex philosophical texts, and considered himself well versed in the various approaches to Buddhist practice. Yet, something in the old monk's simple statement suggested depths of understanding that his academic knowledge had somehow missed. Each of these mushrooms, the tenzo, continued holding up a small dried shiitake with the same reverence another might show a precious jewel, is an opportunity to practice complete presence, perfect attention, unconditional care. When I examine this mushroom to determine whether it belongs with the ones suitable for soup or the ones that need further preparation, I am practicing the same discrimination and wisdom that distinguishes enlightenment from delusion. Gentle sound of items being carefully handled and sorted, he set the mushroom down with deliberate precision and picked up another, When I handle each piece of food with respect and gratitude, recognizing that it will nourish the bodies that support the minds that seek awakening, I am practicing the same compassion that motivates all Buddhist teaching. When I perform this work without wishing I was somewhere else doing something I consider more important, I am practicing the same acceptance of present moment reality that characterizes enlightened consciousness. As the old monk spoke, Dogen began to perceive something that would revolutionize his understanding of spiritual practice. The sorting of mushrooms wasn't preparation for meditation, it was meditation. The careful arrangement of vegetables wasn't a mundane task to be completed before beginning spiritual work. It was spiritual work of the highest order. But surely Dogen persisted, still influenced by conventional ideas about the hierarchy of spiritual activities. Formal sitting meditation and the study of Buddha's teachings are more directly connected to awakening than kitchen work. The Tenzo smiled with infinite patience. "Tell me, young scholar, when you sit in meditation, what are you practicing?" "Mindfulness concentration, the observation of thoughts and feelings without attachment," Dogen replied readily. "And when I carefully wash these vegetables, paying complete attention to the texture of each leaf, the temperature of the water, the movements of my hands without wishing the work were finished so I could move on to something else. What am I practicing? Sound of water gently flowing as if washing vegetables." The question stopped Dogen completely. He realized that the Tenzo was demonstrating exactly the same quality of mindful presence, the same non-attached awareness, the same complete engagement with immediate reality that was considered the essence of formal meditation practice. Furthermore, the old monk continued, "When I prepare food with the intention that it will support the health and energy of practitioners who are dedicating their lives to awakening, not just for my own community, but knowing that well-nourished practitioners will be able to serve all beings more effectively, am I not practicing the same bodhisattva ideal that motivates the most advanced teaching?" Over the following weeks, Dogen spent every spare moment observing the Tenzo's work, gradually coming to understand that what he was witnessing was not simply careful performance of necessary tasks, but a complete demonstration of enlightened activity. Every gesture in the kitchen was performed with the same precision and presence that characterized the old monk's formal meditation. Every ingredient was handled with the same reverence that others might show to sacred relics. Gentle sounds of tea preparation beginning. Most remarkably, Dogen observed that the Tenzo's state of consciousness seemed to remain constant whether he was chopping vegetables, washing rice, tending cooking fires, or sitting in formal meditation. There was no shift between practice time and ordinary time. No sense that some activities were spiritual and others merely functional. The entire day was one seamless expression of awakened presence. "This is what Buddha meant," the Tenzo explained one evening as they shared tea after the day's kitchen work was complete, when he spoke of right livelihood as part of the Noble Eightfold Path. "It's not enough to have pure intentions or correct understanding if we then approach our daily activities as obstacles to spiritual development. True practice transforms every activity into an expression of enlightened awareness." He gestured toward the now clean kitchen, where every pot had been washed and carefully returned to its designated place, every surface wiped clean, every tool prepared for the next day's service. When we approach our work, whether it's preparing food, sweeping floors, copying sutras or sitting in meditation with complete presence and the intention to benefit all beings, then every moment becomes a moment of awakening, every action becomes an expression of Buddha nature. Soft sounds of tea being poured into ceramic cups. This understanding became central to Dogen's El-Eta teaching, which emphasized that enlightenment is not a special state to be achieved through particular practices, but the natural expression of consciousness when it is completely present to whatever activity is being performed. He wrote extensively about just sitting as the ultimate practice, but he also taught with equal emphasis about just cooking, just cleaning, just walking. The radical approach of bringing the same quality of awareness to every aspect of daily life. Tonight, dear friend, as we sit here in this simple kitchen where countless meals have been prepared with the same spirit of mindful service that the old Tenzo demonstrated to young Dogen, we too can discover the profound practice that transforms ordinary activities into expressions of awakened consciousness. Notice how even now, as you simply sit and breathe in this humble space, you are engaged in the same fundamental practice that the Tenzo performed while sorting mushrooms. The practice of being completely present to what is happening now without wishing you were somewhere else or doing something different. Gentle sound of water beginning to simmer in a kettle. Listen as I prepare tea using the same simple implements that have served this purpose for generations. Notice how each action measuring the tea leaves, warming the pot, pouring the water can be performed as a meditation when approached with complete attention and care. Feel how your awareness naturally settles into the rhythm of these simple preparations. There is no need to create a special meditative state. The careful performance of any activity with full presence naturally cultivates the same peaceful alertness that is the goal of formal sitting practice. Watch how the steam rises from the teapot in delicate spirals, each wisp following its own unique path into the air before dissolving back into invisibility. This is exactly how thoughts and emotions arise in consciousness when we observe them with the same gentle attention we bring to watching steam. They appear, exist for their moment, and naturally dissipate without requiring any effort on our part to push them away or hold on to them. Sound of tea being poured into cups with careful attention to the process. As I pour this tea into simple ceramic cups, notice how the sound of liquid flowing changes as each cup fills, starting with a hollow tone as the tea hits the empty bottom, gradually deepening as the cup fills, reaching a gentle overflow when the perfect amount has been poured. This careful listening to determine exactly the right moment to stop pouring is the same quality of sensitive awareness that allows us to navigate all of life's activities with wisdom and skill. Take now this warm cup in your hands, feeling the heat radiating through the ceramic, noticing how your fingers naturally adjust their grip to accommodate the temperature and weight. This simple act of holding a cup demonstrates the same responsive intelligence that the Zen tradition calls Buddha nature, the innate capacity to meet each moment with exactly the appropriate response without needing to think or plan or control. Gentle sounds of sipping tea with pauses for contemplation. As you taste this tea, prepared with the same mindful attention that has been brought to countless cups in this kitchen over the centuries, notice how the simple act of drinking becomes a complete practice when performed with full awareness. the warmth spreading through your body, the subtle flavors developing on your tongue, the natural satisfaction that comes from this basic act of nourishment, all of this is happening without any effort or striving on your part. This is what the old Tenzo was pointing to when he told Dogen that kitchen work was indistinguishable from the highest spiritual practice. Not because cooking and cleaning are symbolic of something else, but because they provide perfect opportunities to practice the same complete presence, the same unconditional acceptance of what is the same compassionate service to life that characterizes all awakened activity. Feel how this understanding transforms your relationship to the ordinary activities that fill your own daily life. Washing dishes becomes an opportunity to practice mindfulness of physical sensations and the satisfaction of bringing order to disorder. Preparing meals becomes a chance to practice gratitude for the countless beings and processes that bring food to your table, and to offer nourishment with the same care that a parent feeds a beloved child. Soft sounds of gentle kitchen activities continuing. Even the simplest activities, folding clothes, sweeping floors, organizing belongings, become invitations to practice the same presence and precision that transform routine tasks into expressions of enlightened consciousness. Not because these activities are inherently spiritual, but because consciousness itself is naturally awake and peaceful when not distracted by the mental commentary that usually accompanies our actions. As we continue to sit quietly in this kitchen, where the sacred and the ordinary have long been recognized as one seamless reality, allow yourself to absorb the profound simplicity of this teaching. The peace you seek, the awakening you long for, the sense of meaning and purpose that gives life its deepest satisfaction. All of this is available right now in the simple act of being completely present to whatever you are doing. Extended, gentle ambience of the peaceful kitchen at night. Let this understanding settle into your being like the tea settling into your stomach, a warm, nourishing presence that becomes part of you without effort or force. Tomorrow, when you return to your own daily activities, you can carry with you the same spirit that has made this humble kitchen a sacred space for centuries. The recognition that every moment offers an opportunity to practice the presence and compassion that are your deepest nature. Rest now in this simple truth, letting the gentle warmth of the kitchen embrace you as you prepare for the deep restorative sleep that comes naturally when consciousness is no longer divided between spiritual and ordinary activities, but recognizes all of life as one continuous opportunity for awakening one seamless expression of the Buddha nature that is always already present, always already perfect, always already home. Peaceful silence with only the gentle ambient sounds of a temple kitchen at rest. Part 7. The Sutra Library, Wisdom Beyond Words and the Silence Between Letters. Soft rustling of ancient pages turning the faint scent of red paper and incense in the air from the humble kitchen where we discovered the sacredness woven through simple actions. Our moonlit journey now leads us along a covered walkway lined with stone lanterns, their gentle flames casting dancing shadows on weathered wooden posts. The path guides us toward one of the temple's most revered spaces, the Sutra Library, where centuries of accumulated wisdom rests in profound silence, waiting to illuminate the hearts of those who seek understanding beyond the limitations of ordinary thought. As we approach the library's entrance, notice how the very architecture seems to whisper of the treasures contained within. The massive wooden doors, crafted from ancient cedar and darkened by centuries of reverent touch, are carved with intricate representations of the wheel of Dharma lotus blossoms in various stages of bloom, and the endless knot symbolizing the interconnectedness of all phenomena. Each carved detail speaks to the understanding that true wisdom cannot be contained in any single text or teaching, but flows like water through countless vessels, each one offering its own unique reflection of the same eternal truths. Sound of heavy wooden doors opening with a deep resonant creak. We step across the raised threshold into a space that immediately transforms our awareness, as if the very air he has been sanctified by generations of sincere seeking and devoted study. The atmosphere is cooler than the warm night outside, yet somehow more substantial, charged with the accumulated presence of countless hours of contemplation, scholarly devotion, and those profound moments when understanding suddenly blossoms like a night-blooming flower opening to reveal its luminous heart. The library extends before us in magnificent spaciousness. Soaring wooden beams support a ceiling that disappears into gentle shadows above, while row upon row of carefully crafted shelves rise like ancient trees, their branches heavy with the precious fruit of human wisdom. Scrolls bound in silk texts, wrapped in brocade volumes, bound in leather and wood. Each one represents not merely information to be consumed, but living wisdom waiting to be awakened through the mysterious alchemy that occurs when sincere seeking meets authentic teaching. Gentle sound of footsteps on polished wooden floors with the so-ft ambient whisper of air moving through the space. Candles placed at regular intervals cast pools of warm golden light that create intimate reading spaces throughout the vast hall, each one an invitation to solitary communion with the great minds and awakened hearts who have walked this path before us. The flickering flames reflect off the polished surfaces of reading tables, worn smooth by countless students, their wood bearing the invisible imprints of all those who have leaned forward in concentration, traced characters with their fingers, and experienced those precious moments when understanding suddenly illuminates the mind like dawn breaking over distant mountains. As we settle ourselves at one of these ancient tables, surrounded by the gentle presence of texts that have guided seekers for over a millennium, let me share with you a story that illuminates the profound mystery of how true wisdom is transmitted, not merely through the mechanical transfer of information from page to mind, but through the subtle process by which authentic understanding arises in the space between words, in the silence that gives meaning to sound, in the emptiness that allows form to appear. Soft sound of settling into wooden chairs, followed by the gentle rustle of opening an ancient text. During the Song dynasty, when Buddhist scholarship was flourishing throughout China, and the great libraries were being established in monasteries across the land, there lived a young monk named Ming Zhao, whose intellectual brilliance was matched only by his sincere longing for authentic spiritual understanding. Unlike many scholars of his time who approached Buddhist texts as academic exercises, Ming Zhao studied with the urgent intensity of someone who understood that these teachings pointed toward the resolution of life's deepest questions, the nature of suffering, the possibility of genuine freedom, and the ultimate meaning of human existence. Day after day, year after year, Ming Zhao could be found in the monastery's library, surrounded by towering stacks of sutras, commentaries, philosophical treatises, and the recorded dialogues of enlightened masters. His dedication was legendary. He would often study from before dawn until well past midnight, taking only brief breaks for meals and the minimal sleep necessary to maintain his health. His memory was prodigious, his analytical abilities exceptional, and his understanding of Buddhist doctrine more comprehensive than many monks twice his age. Yet, despite his scholarly achievements and the respect they earned him from his teachers and fellow students, Mingzhao found himself increasingly troubled by a growing sense that something essential was eluding him. The more texts he mastered, the more he became aware of how much remained beyond his understanding. The sutras spoke of profound truths that seemed to shimmer just beyond his intellectual grasp, like distant stars whose light reaches us, but whose true nature remains mysterious and remote. Sound of pages turning slowly with careful reverence. The Heart Sutra spoke of form being emptiness, emptiness being form. But what did this really mean beyond the clever philosophical interpretations he could construct? The Diamond Sutra declared that all conditioned phenomena are like dreams, illusions, bubbles, shadows. But how could this understanding transform the actual experience of daily life? The Platform Sutra described sudden enlightenment as the recognition of one's original nature. But this original nature seemed as elusive as trying to grasp moonlight in his hands. One autumn evening, as the first frost was beginning to touch the temple gardens and the leaves were starting their annual transformation from green to gold, Mingzhao sat in the library feeling particularly overwhelmed by the vastness of what he was attempting to comprehend. Before him lay open the Lotus Sutra with its magnificent promise that all beings possess Buddha nature and will eventually awaken to their true identity. Yet, reading these words, even with deep concentration and sincere faith, seemed to create no fundamental shift in his consciousness, no direct recognition of this Buddha nature that was supposedly his birthright. Lost in this contemplation, Mingzhao didn't notice the approach of Master Huixin, the elderly monk who served as the library's keeper and was renowned not only for his encyclopedic knowledge of Buddhist literature, but for his rare ability to guide students beyond mere intellectual understanding into the realm of direct experiential wisdom. Gentle footsteps approaching, followed by the soft sound of someone settling nearby. Master Huixin observed the young scholar for several moments before speaking, taking in the slight tension in Mingzhao's shoulders, the furrowed concentration of his brow, and the quality of spiritual hunger that radiated from his entire being. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the gentle authority of someone Buho had himself made the journey from conceptual understanding to living realization. "Mingzhao," he said softly, "I have watched you study with admirable dedication for many months now. Your knowledge of the texts has grown extensive. Your understanding of doctrine has become sophisticated. Yet, I sense that you remain troubled. What is it that you seek in these books that you have not yet found?" Mingzhao looked up from the sutra he had been reading, his eyes reflecting both gratitude for the master's attention and frustration with his own apparent limitations. "Master Huixin," he replied, "I study these texts because they contain the Buddha's teachings about the nature of reality and the path to liberation. Yet, the more I read, the more I feel like someone trying to quench thirst by reading descriptions of water. The words point toward profound truths, but the truths themselves seem to remain beyond my direct experience." Master Huixin nodded with the deep understanding of someone who had once faced this same predicament. "This is a crucial recognition, Mingzhao. Most students never even reach the point of understanding that intellectual knowledge and experiential realization are different domains. Tell me, when you read that form is emptiness, what do you understand this to mean? Sound of a page being turned with careful attention, Mingzhao straightened, drawing upon his years of study to formulate a precise response. The teaching means that all phenomena lack inherent independent existence. What we perceive as solid separate objects are actually interdependent processes, empty of the fixed characteristics our conceptual minds attribute to them. Form and emptiness are not two different things, but two ways of perceiving the same reality. An excellent scholarly explanation, Master Huxin acknowledged. Now tell me, as you sit here in this chair, feeling its solid wood supporting your body, looking at these pages with their visible text, hearing the soondiels of night insects through the windows, where is this emptiness you speak of so eloquently? The question stopped Mingzhao completely. He found himself in the peculiar position of knowing the correct answer according to Buddhist philosophy, yet being unable to directly perceive what he knew conceptually to be true. The chair felt completely solid. The pages appeared absolutely real. The sounds seemed to exist independently of his awareness of them. I cannot see the emptiness directly, he admitted with refreshing honesty. I understand it intellectually, but it remains a concept rather than a living perception. Master Huixin smiled with infinite kindness. This honesty is more valuable than all your scholarly achievements combined. Now we can begin the real work, moving from the finger that points at the moon to actually seeing the moon itself. Soft sound of a scroll being unrolled on the wooden table. The master reached for a simple scroll and placed it before Mingzhao. Read this passage from the Heart Sutra, he instructed. But this time don't try to understand it intellectually. Instead, let the words settle into the silence of your mind like stones dropping into still water. Mingzhao began to read his voice naturally, dropping to a whisper in the sacred atmosphere of the library. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Form does not differ from emptiness. Emptiness does not differ from form. Whatever is form is emptiness. Whatever is emptiness is form. As the familiar words emerged from his lips, something extraordinary began to happen. Instead of immediately engaging his analytical mind to pass their meaning, Mingzhao found himself simply resting in the sound of the words themselves, allowing them to reverberate in the spaciousness of his awareness without grasping after their significance. Now, Master Huxin said softly, "Tell me what you hear beyond the words." Extended silence with only the gentle ambient sounds of the library at night. For the first time in years of intensive study, Mingzhao closed his eyes and listened, not with his intellect, but with his entire being. Gradually, he became aware of the silence that held the words, the space in which sounds arose and dissolved, the awareness itself that was present before, during and after the reading. "I hear silence," he whispered, his voice carrying a quality of wonder he hadn't experienced since childhood. But not empty silence, a fullness, a presence that seems to contain all possibilities. "Yes," Master Huxin encouraged gently, "and this awareness that recognizes both sound and silence, what is its nature? Is it form or emptiness?" As this question penetrated Mingzhao's consciousness, something fundamental shifted in his understanding. The awareness that was listening to the words, the consciousness that could recognize both the presence and absence of sound. This wasn't located in his head, or his body wasn't something he possessed or controlled. It was more like space itself, completely present, yet not graspable, absolutely real, yet without substantial form. It's both and neither. Mingzhao said slowly, his voice reflecting the dawning of a recognition that went far deeper than conceptual understanding. The awareness is empty of any fixed characteristics I can name, yet it's the most real thing I've ever encountered. It's like the space in which everything appears, including the very attempt to understand what it is. Sound of gentle recognition, a soft ah of understanding. Master Huixin's eyes sparkled with joy at witnessing this moment of direct recognition. Now you begin to taste what the Heart Sutra is actually pointing toward. The emptiness it speaks of is not a philosophical concept, but the very nature of the awareness with which you are reading these words right now. Form and emptiness are not two different things to be understood, but two aspects of the same reality that is always already present as your Owen deepest nature. Over the following weeks, Master Huixin guided Mingzhao in a completely different approach to studying the sacred texts. Instead of accumulating more conceptual knowledge, he learned to read with what the master called the eye of wisdom, approaching each passage not as information to be grasped, but as a mirror reflecting his own essential nature, a finger pointing toward the moon of direct realization. Gentle sound of pages being turned with new reverence and understanding. The transformation in Mingzhao's relationship to the texts was remarkable. Where once he had read hungrily, trying to extract meaning through intellectual effort, he now approached each sutra with the relaxed attention of someone drinking cool water on a hot day, naturally gratefully with no agenda other than to receive what was being offered. The Lotus Sutra's declaration that all beings possess Buddha nature was no longer a doctrine to be believed, but a recognition of the very awareness with which he was reading the words. The Diamond Sutra's teaching about the illusory nature of phenomena became a direct perception of how all experiences arise and dissolve in the spacious sky of consciousness, like clouds, forming and dissipating in an infinite blue expanse. Most remarkably, Mingzhao discovered that the deepest teachings often resided not in the words themselves, but in the spaces between words, the silence between sentences, the pregnant pause that naturally occurred when the mind stopped its analytical activity and simply rested in pure presence. Extended silence with the gentle ambient presence of the library. The greatest masters. Master Huixin explained during one of their evening sessions, understood that the ultimate teaching cannot be contained in any text, no matter how profound. The sutra are like maps pointing toward a territory that can only be explored through direct experience. They are invitations to discover what you already are, not descriptions of something you need to become. Years later, when Mingzhao had become a respected teacher himself, students would often ask him about his method for studying the sacred texts. He would smile and lead them to the library, inviting them to approach the scriptures, not as repositories of information, but as catalysts for awakening the wisdom that was already naturally present within their own awareness. Read with your whole being, he would tell them, not just with your thinking mind. Let the words penetrate into the silence of your heart, where understanding arises not through analysis but through recognition. The Buddha's voice is speaking to you right now through these texts, but it's the same voice that speaks through your breath, your heartbeat, and the awareness that is reading these very words. Sound of settling deeper into the profound stillness of the library tonight. Dear friend, as we sit together in this sacred library where countless seekers have made the same discovery, Teddy transformed Mingjiao's understanding, we too can learn to read with the eye of wisdom rather than the eye of knowledge-seeking. Notice how even now, as you simply listen to these words, there is an awareness present that effortlessly receives whatever is being offered. Not the thinking mind that analyzes and categorizes, but the deeper consciousness that simply knows directly and immediately. Feel how this awareness is like the space in which all thoughts and perceptions arise completely present, yet never disturbed by whatever appears within it, infinitely spacious, yet intimate and immediate. This is what the Heart Sutra calls emptiness, not a void or absence, but the fundamental ground of being that allows all experience to manifest. Allow these words to settle into this spacious awareness, like rain soaking into thirsty earth, not as concepts to be grasped, but as pointers toward the recognition of what you already essentially are. Notice how understanding arises, not through effort, but through a natural relaxing into the simplicity of pure presence. Gentle sound of night wind through the library windows. In the silence between these words, discover the same pregnant emptiness that holds all sounds. In the space between thoughts, recognize the awareness that witnesses both thinking and non-thinking without being limited by either. This is the living wisdom that no text can fully contain, yet every authentic teaching points toward the recognition of your own boundless nature, always already present, always already perfect, always already home. Rest now in this understanding, letting the accumulated wisdom of the ages serve its highest purpose, not to fill your mind with more concepts, but to point you back to the source of all wisdom, the natural awareness that needs no text to know itself, no teachings to be complete, no attainment to be free. Extended profound silence with only the gentle ambient presence of ancient wisdom.